so fun to be joined with musicians, although it's a little bit difficult because we don't want to run into the last bit of the song, but then so we always like do a little dance up here waiting for the right moment to come up here. Everybody's eating ice cream. I am not because I'm afraid of ruining my pants.
Oh, well. And it's cold in here, actually.
I just know myself. We have one last talk on the central stage for today. And I think he's also a returning guest.
Oh, a long year. A well-known face, actually, in the community. You might have stumbled across some parts of his code still in NEOS. So please welcome on stage now, Andreas Förthner.
Hello.
Don't forget to submit your questions.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Whoa, it's bright here. Yeah, nice to be back after some years, I'd say. And today I'd like to talk about a project we've done also for some years, especially 5 or 6 years already with Flow and NEOS inside. For those who don't know me, I'm Andreas, I'm 40 years old, I'm partner at Netlogics in Nuremberg, a web agency there. And I've been doing NEOS and Flow projects almost right from the beginning, I'd say. Just a short checkup. Who knows when this was? Robert, you are not allowed to answer. Yes, 2013, the NEOS 1.0 release we had in Nuremberg was really great event. I'm still proud that I could be part of that. So why am I here today? Basically because Sebastian asked me. And I'd like to show you or tell you what I did the last years. And for now, thanks for this little nostalgic moment. And now let's start with the talk. What is verein360? That's a project, as I said, and I have to tell you a little about the structure and where it comes from. It's a bit hard because I have to try to translate German things into English that don't exist in English, but let's try. In Germany, we have institutions called Vereine. You probably know that from the NEOS Foundation, which is also a Verein. And especially sports clubs are usually Vereine in Germany. So when I say sports club in the talk, you can think of Vereine, if you know what it is. And those sports clubs are usually members of associations. These associations are somehow on the federal, state level. And these associations then build the connection to something that's national sports associations, the Olympic sports associations, and all this, and the connection to public institutions. And this is in the federal state of Bavaria, the BLSV, the Bayerische Landessportverband, and this is our customer. They started back in 2019 an initiative to help sports clubs to digitalize their processes, to help them with digital tools. And for this, they founded a 100% subsidiary that's called Tuesday Sport, that company, and their main objective is to develop, to create a platform that's called verein360. Now we're here. And this is, we are, as an agency, doing most of the development of the core system. And as you can imagine, we've come along quite some tasks and challenges, and I just want to talk a little about it. Some features that you get an impression what the platform is about. On this platform, sports clubs can import their members, they can manage their members. Members can create own profiles, can log in, manage their own members' data. And then there is a main purpose where it all came from. All the sports clubs have to report this information to the BLSV. And this is one digital process they wanted to make easier for the sports clubs, and this is where we all started, that the clubs could just push a button and report this information to their BLSV association. And then we add more features to this platform, something like an organization management to open up the platform for other organizations, for other associations as well. So the whole thing grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger. And yeah, obviously, as it's somehow a public project or a public funded project, you also have public processes to get money. For example, if you ever wanted to build a sports hall on yourself, that's a good place to start and ask for money. Okay. In the first part, I'd like to show you some technical decisions or architecture decisions we did in the beginning or along the way that are, in the end, I'll tell you about which one were good, which one maybe not so good. And we, had quite some lessons to learn along the way. Who knows this diagram? It's a pattern, so patterns are always from Martin Fowler. So this is Martin Fowler's bounded context pattern. This is one key decision we did at the very beginning, that we wanted to split up the whole system, the whole architecture in different parts and decouple these logical parts from each other. So this is something, just a spoiler, turned out to be a pretty good thing. These contexts, in our case, could be something like the person management, person data management, or another thing is the context or the part which is responsible for the club structure or the memberships management. So this is how we separate the whole system in different parts. And these parts obviously have to be connected to each other. They might even have duplicate data. This is intended. So this is a different example from Martin Fowler, but it might be that you have a person in two contexts, the data stored, because each context needs it. And then there is connections between these data and these contexts so that you can figure out in the end which connects together how. This has been maybe the most fundamental architectural decision we did in the beginning. And as I already said, little spoiler, this has been one of the good ones. Another thing, now that you know of these bounded contexts, let's have a little closer look how we build up the platform by those contexts. We added something or distinguished them in contexts that are so-called global contexts, we call them, and we have local contexts. So this is global parts of the platforms and local parts. Why do we do this? Because we have something like tenants in place. So you have multiple tenants, and each tenant has a set of local contexts, of local platform parts, and then you have something like platform parts functionality that is needed by every tenant. Easiest example is the login. This is something every tenant needs. So this is in the part of the global backend context, and then you have local backend context. And one other good thing is that these tenants could have different sets of context. So it might be that we have a tenant for sports club that use billing engine for membership fees, and we could have another tenant that doesn't use this context, so we don't have to deploy it there, we don't have to run it there. On the front-end side, we have, I think, 4 or 5 different Angular apps, which are standalone Angular apps, and they are communicating with those backend contexts via JSON API. And thing is, if, for example, a user is in the club manager, he can talk to different tenants by switching from one tenant to another without switching the front-end app. So we just switch the API parts to the other tenant, the API URLs to the other tenant. So by this, we can add more tenants without changing the UI app or reloading the UI app. Okay, that's the overall application architecture, I'd say. There is one special context I'd like to point out a little, which is the SSO context. I already said it's responsible for doing the login and stuff. And this is a good example because it's built on Keycloak, that you don't have to implement every context yourself. So in this whole context pattern, there might be contexts that are ready to use software context that we just deploy within the system. And obviously, these software systems need a good API that we can integrate it into the whole context or service landscape. But with Keycloak, that works pretty good. And there is another fundamental or central aspect about this SSO context, because having an IDM system or a single sign-on system is not only something good for the user, it's really needed to have those contexts communicate with each other. So we really have to see which information can flow from one context to the other. There needs to be access checks in between, and this is all controlled by this central SSO service. Okay, and then, obviously, like everyone, we have also event sourcing. I know you've been flooded a little bit about this topic in the last years, probably. At least we use it for the context we develop on our own, obviously, so based on Flow. And what we have is that each of these contexts, each of these platform parts has its own event store. This is something good. This is something we didn't have in the beginning. I'll come to this later. What it brings us is that we actually have an implicit audit log for these contexts, so we really can see the history, what happens on the platform in the different parts. And another thing we really use quite often is that we have the possibility to add new data models based on these events, because new features arise, some data model doesn't fit anymore, so we can repopulate the events and create new data models and use them with new features. I won't get more into detail of event sourcing. If you like to ask Lars, he's sitting here. For the technical details, I always say ask Lars because he knows it much better than me. But I hope you get the idea what it brings us and why we did it. To complete the overview of the platform, what we are doing there, and before I come to the lessons learned or to what worked out good and what not, just some numbers, what the platform looks like currently. So we currently have about 12,000, around about 12,000 clubs on the platform. This ends up in about 8 million membership records. So a person is member of the soccer team in sports club XYZ. And we have about 30,000 users that actually manage their profiles on the platform. On the application part, I've talked a lot about those contexts or services or parts of the platform. We have 28. And we have in the event stores altogether around about 200 million events. That's quite a bit of data. And we have more than 20,000 tests. That's unit tests, functional tests, end-to-end tests for the platform, which is all something that helps us a lot to keep it stable and running. On the infrastructure part, we have more than 100 containers that build up all this stuff. If you want to know the details of what's in these containers, ask Lars. Yes, you learn a lot. You learn fast. We have, it's just some numbers to give you an idea. We have 346 gigahertz of CPUs allocated on the cluster that could be used by those contexts, and we have 8 terabytes of RAM that could be used. So there's quite some things happen, I'd say. Okay, so let's have a look at the challenges on the lessons learned. I hope you got a little of a picture what the platform is, what the project is about, and how the architecture looks like. If we go to the challenges, or the main challenge we had, it's actually maybe not a technical one, but the challenge that we always, along the way, all the years, we had a completely moving target, and not on the single little feature part, but really on the strategic and the business model part of the whole platform. As I said in the beginning, we started with some administration processes we should digitalize, which was in fact a little web app to import membership data and to report it to the BLSV. Then they realized, hey, that's a cool platform or a cool idea. We have all the clubs on the platform. Let's provide them with features they can use to manage their own clubs, which is something completely different. And if we do that, we could sell this platform to the clubs, earn money, and take the revenue to cover the development costs. In the end, turned out this business plan was a little bit too ambitious, because sports clubs don't have much money usually. So the political strategy behind the platform shifted again to open it up to other vereine, to other clubs, to other associations, to really get more people on the platform. And this is why we, for example, I showed it in the beginning, why we started to add something like organization management. This is far beyond only sports clubs. You can imagine if we have these strategic changes, this adds up on the features level. So we came from this simple web app to report membership data. Then we had to support processes within sports clubs like fee management, or so membership fees, or member structure, or team management, and all this stuff. And there was not enough time to get these features ready when the strategy changed again. So we tried to provide features for members, and in the end we came back to administration processes and to implement these tenants I've told you. This haven't been there from the very beginning. We just had to add them later on. Okay, so in the next part, I've collected some statements, or what we expected from the technology decisions or from the architecture, and how it turned out. Sometimes it's maybe more just initial hope we had, but let's see. As I already said, event sourcing brings an automatic audit log. That's kind of true, but you have to plan for it. Otherwise, there's always this action, this event you are searching for that's not in the stream because you didn't create those events. So if you want an audit log, you really have to plan for it and see what should be in there. Another thing, event replays are great if something went wrong and you want to recover from an inconsistent state, or that's true in theory. In practice, what do you do if recovering from the event store takes 3 months? it's okay if you have time. So this never really worked for us in real life. It's just too slow for such big amounts of data. So that's a nice theory. We never use this. I know there are strategies to maybe overcome this, but yeah, they have other drawbacks, and you have to implement them. And yeah, so we actually never use this part. But what we do is that I already said that a little, that we can create new projections in parallel. So we can set up new data models based on the event streams, and then add new features in the code and switch those the code or the features to the new data models or the new projection. That works out pretty nicely because you can create these new projections asynchronously in the background. And they can run 3 months, it's okay. And we had them, not all of them 3 months, but a week or 2 or 3 quite often happens. 2 things about event sourcing or event stores. The event store is immutable. Yes, it is, until you do event migrations. We did that quite often because, yeah, systems changes, processes changes, and the events don't fit to that what you want to do, and so you have to do event migrations. It's okay, it works. You can do them also in parallel, you can do them asynchronously in the background. That works pretty good. On the other hand, there's also something you can use them to clean things up a little. If we also have quite some event migrations that just delete all the events that are not used anymore, we would have some 100 million events more if we hadn't done that, and that would slow up everything even more. Okay, and then one last thing, I spoiled a little in the beginning. We started with a central event store to connect those application parts to each other, because like everyone, we also try to solve everything with event sourcing. That's the greatest concept, to do everything. And why not connect those contexts via events? So if in one context happens an event, the other one could consume it and react on it and do things. That's a great API to connect those contexts to each other. Conclusion is, don't do it. Bad idea. You'll die in complexity completely. It's really hell. You completely kill the idea of decoupling those contexts, and there is always this one screw on the one side that makes something on the other side, and you will never get out of this. So use clear APIs between those parts and leave event sourcing out of this. That's really something we had to learn, and it took us quite a while to get it out of the system. Again, we are there finally, since 2 years, I think, or something. Okay. One thing, make it short, the clear architecture, the loose coupling with the bounded context is really something that works really, really good for us. That's something we, yeah, we had really, really good experience with. We could, by that, for example, distribute the applications even better. We could introduce this concept of new tenants. We could use it when updating, for example, do framework updates or do infrastructure updates. We started with classic LAMP stack deployments back then, and then we started to create containers, and we really could do it step by step with this architecture. That helps a lot. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been ready by anything. However, what happens is that we change the contexts and the scope of those contexts from time to time. So in the beginning, we started with very many little slow contexts. You could also say we had this microservice architecture in mind, somehow not exactly the same, but this just got too slow. This is also why I don't think that microservice architecture is a good thing if you take it from theory. But we really made them bigger in the end, and by this it works pretty nicely, that you really have relevant, bigger application parts in one context. Okay. Then one thing regarding deployments, in general, we have a staging system, we have a testing system, and we have a production system, and we have automatic deployments there. So one could say, if everything works in the QA systems, it's just a push of a button to bring it to life. That's true. But what happens if you have to do something with your data in this deployment process? So for example, you all know something like a database index, for example. It's pretty good to add database indexes if you provide new features, because otherwise it's probably slow on the other part. But what do you do if adding the index takes 5 days and locks the database? That's pretty problem. So yeah, you really have to keep in mind that it could happen, and it's really, really hard to predict how long these steps will take, because in QA on your system, it's fast. There's not much data. It's just like, yeah, add the index, it's okay. So this is really still a tough part. Another thing, oops, where are we? Yeah. Refactoring is a good thing to do. And before you do a new feature, you should do refactoring to not base the new feature on technical depths or things you wanted to change anyways for quite a while. But it's always a thing that we must not underestimate how long these refactorings might take. It's really in such a system and such a complexity, refactoring is really, really, really a big task sometimes for weeks or months. Yeah, and as I already said, on the other hand, these refactorings and these changes to technology can be done step by step in this architecture, which is good. Yeah. One thing, we really need to integrate ready-to-use services in the platform. We do it more and more. That's maybe not the mindset I also learned back then in the Neos and Flow times where I developed. There we always try to do it on our own. Well, that just doesn't work. You cannot do everything on your own and re-implement everything that's already there. So implementing things or integrating things that are already there is a good thing. There need to be good APIs, but yeah. On the other hand, if you want to integrate systems that are not just a piece of code that you pull into your repository and deploy it yourself, but you want to integrate software as a service systems that other teams deploy or run, then you have other challenges like they have to understand your APIs. You have to interact with them. You have to provide documentation how your platform works. This is something we're currently working on, that we really have to provide something like a developer documentation for externals, an API browser for externals, and hold these APIs stable, not just for us. This is really a new challenge that we have to tackle. One thing, we wouldn't have been able to build verein360 without Neos and Flow. Well, honestly, probably we would have. But we definitely wouldn't have embraced those central concepts like bounded context or even event sourcing. So this is really something we took from this community, and yeah, which is a good thing. Another thing, I've talked a lot about framework and flow because most of the parts is really an application and it's not NEOS. However, there is one statement on the NEOS website, and it's content and application combined. And that's also true for verein360. So we have some parts where we need editing, where we need to create content, but we turn the concept a bit upside down. So we have a big application, we have a big platform, and we put NEOS as a component, as an editing component in this platform, not the other way around. So, for example, we use it for dashboards or editing announcements for the users. And that works pretty nicely. Okay. From a team perspective, we're having dailies and plannings with the customer, with the whole team, with the development team, which is a good thing. But we had to learn a bit how to handle these meetings because the technical deep dives we usually or used to have in those meetings sometimes had to really be kept out of these meetings because you just confuse your customer, you confuse the non-developers in the team in the meetings. So this is something we really had to change because otherwise you just end up in uncertainty or especially the customer gets completely confused. Okay, this is also an interesting thing I wouldn't have expected in the beginning of the project that we had to, we really have to care for how we communicate in this meeting, that this has such a big impact. Okay, and one last thing I'd like to talk about because I didn't talk about AI yet. Everyone has to talk about AI. Now, in general, we're also evaluating AI concepts. I almost can second what Robert told this morning in the keynote. We're experimenting with integrating AI mates to the team, see what AI agents can do for us. We're experimented with the GitHub Copilot, JetBrains AI, and finally, like everyone probably ended up with Cloud Code. For now, this is probably nothing new, but there are two main experiences we can say for now. From the very first weeks and months, we try this stuff out. The tests we have in the project, those 20,000 plus tests, really help a lot because they add context for the AI. This is something that really improves quality for AI agents or for the results of those AI agents. And the other thing is, if you could have solved the problem yourself as a developer, it's probably a good idea and you're probably pretty efficient to do it with an AI agent. If you couldn't have solved it yourself, you're probably lost as the same as you've been before. And the only thing you do is you add up and burn AI credits on top. So this is the experience or the point where we currently are, and we'll see where it goes, obviously, like everyone else also does. Okay, so what can I say about this project, or how concludes all this? I'd say stay flexible. Yeah, I mean, not only in this project and the AI stuff, but it's really, it changes everything, and it even might change the whole strategy or the whole architecture. And yeah, if we stay that flexible and we could tackle it, and good architectural decisions help, but if they are the wrong ones, you still have to change it and have to stay flexible and change things anyways. So that's basically my overview, my talk. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening. And just one thing, by the way, because the whole team is sitting here in the second row, so thank you very much for doing this project, because you're developing it, not me. I'm just talking about it. It's really a great and a challenging project. Thanks very much. And if you really are interested more into the technical details, ask Lars or one of these guys here.
I do have two things for you.
Yes.
One question and one present. You get to choose what do you want first.
First the question.
Okay. So someone asked anonymously, do you use a dedicated event store, or is it based on a relational database?
It's a relational database, and we're probably the only team in the world using the original event sourcing package. No, two, sorry, Robert. Besides Robert, we're the only ones using this original package, and obviously it's not the same as it has been back then, but yeah, we adopted it pretty early, I'd say. Yeah.
Now you deserve a gift.
Thank
Thank
you
you so much.
Thank
Big
you.
round of applause.